Today, December 10th, 2025, the UK government announced something remarkable. A $500 million 10-year plan to save Britain's young people from what Keir Starmer calls a lost decade of kids left as collateral damage. But here's the problem. Between 2010 and 2023, local government spending on youth services collapsed by 73%. Over 1,000 youth centres closed. More than 4,500 youth workers lost their jobs. An entire infrastructure designed to support young people simply vanished. And now, after 15 years without a national youth strategy, the government wants to rebuild everything with $500 million spread over a decade. That's $50 million per year for 14 million young people, which works out to about $357 per young person annually. So the real question isn't whether youth clubs can fix a lost generation. It's whether 3MY57 can. The government's own State of the Nation survey interviewed 14,000 young people across England. What they found should alarm everyone. Young people in Britain are the most digitally connected generation in history, and simultaneously, among the most isolated on the planet. Nearly 1 in 5 young people say they don't have a single trusted adult outside their home. Not a teacher, not a youth worker, not a coach, no one. 24% of young people say they don't even know where they could go in their local area to join clubs or activities. This is what a decade of cuts looks like. Not abstract policy failures. Real kids with nowhere to go and no one to turn to. And here's what makes it worse. These kids know exactly what they need. Mental health support, safe spaces to meet friends, guidance for education and careers. The survey is remarkably clear, but what's also clear is the math. The government promises to ensure 500,000 more young people have access to a trusted adult by 2035. There are currently 34% fewer youth workers than in 2013, which means the government plans to support 500,000 more kids, with even fewer workers than before. How? Let's break down where the money actually goes. $350 million for youth facilities over 4 years, $70 million for 50 Young Futures hubs, $60 million for a Richer Young Lives fund, $22.5 million for school-based programs, $15 million to recruit and train youth workers, $5 million to improve local partnerships. Add it up. That's $522.5 million. Sounds substantial, but remember, 1,000 youth centres closed. To build or refurbish 250 facilities, the government's target means replacing just 25% of what was lost. And here's the uncomfortable part. This isn't new money. $100 million comes from dormant assets, money the previous Conservative government already announced. Another chunk comes from redirecting existing budgets. The actual new investment, far less than the headline $500 million suggests. But there's something even more concerning. The government is scrapping the National Citizen Service, a program where 93% of participants reported satisfaction. Why? Because ministers believe social media has made it obsolete. Social media, the same platforms driving the isolation crisis, made youth services obsolete. The government claims this strategy is co-produced with young people. Thousands surveyed, a youth advisory group of 13 young people, democracy cafes. Focus groups. But listen to what the young people are actually saying. Honor, age 12, attends Hastings Youth Commons, a club serving 100+ young people weekly. When asked what they did before the youth club existed, Honor said, "Nothing really. Didn't do anything before this. Just kind of chilled. If the club closed, I'd be devastated. That club is now at risk of closure because the timeline for the new strategy is unclear. Funding isn't flowing yet, and clubs like Hastings Commons are at a cliff edge." This is the brutal reality. The government announces a 10-year strategy while existing youth clubs face immediate closure because they can't wait 10 years. A 15-year-old quoted in the survey wrote, "It's 2025, and though the digital world offers endless connections, sometimes I feel a strange, quiet loneliness. Transport costs eat into part-time earnings. Mental health is a big one. And crucially, outside of school, there isn't much for my mates and I to do in person. Few youth clubs, few affordable activities. The same survey found that certain groups face worse conditions. Young people with disabilities, those in deprived areas. Black and minority ethnic youth, Muslim communities in urban England, they were more likely to feel like there were not enough clubs and activities where they lived. The strategy acknowledges all of this. It's remarkably honest about the scale of the crisis. But acknowledgement isn't action. And action requires money, time and capacity that doesn't currently exist. So can youth clubs fix a lost generation? Yes, absolutely. The evidence is overwhelming that youth services transform lives, reduce crime, improve mental health, build skills, create connections. But that requires investment. Real investment, not $357 per young person per year. The government's own research shows what's needed. More youth workers, more spaces, better coordination, long-term funding stability. The strategy promises all of that by 2035, which means a generation of young people will spend the next decade waiting for help that was taken away 15 years ago. Keir Starmer said today that supporting young people is our generation's greatest responsibility and our moral mission. He's right, but missions require resources, and $500 million over 10 years to rebuild what $1.2 billion in cuts destroyed isn't a mission. It's a gamble that youth clubs can somehow fix a lost generation with a fraction of what was stolen from them. The question isn't whether it's worth trying. It's whether $50 million a year is enough, or whether we're just setting up another generation for disappointment.